here's another one that was quite long awaited and kind of in mothball status for a long time for a variety of reasons. One, that this was designed before I actually moved to South Carolina, so I made this back in California. But in the move and getting over here, it basically just kind of sat as a design because I wasn't completely happy with it. There was things I had to change on it. But here it is, the Federal Sign and Signal 500 SHTT in all of its glory. This is the miniaturized one. There again is kind of my hand for scale, but if you want a bit more details on it, the cone itself is about 5.5 inches from the bottom to the top. The entire height of the siren from the bottom of the slip ring cover to the top is also about 5.5. So it's a pretty equal size. And then the width, of course, from the top of from the front of the intake tube to the back of the motor cover is about another 3.5, 3 3/4. It didn't actually occur to me what scale I was kind of going for with this one. I primarily used the exact same rotor and stator that I used for the ST10, of course. So I used the exact same model that I used for this. So it's pretty much the exact same scale as the ST10 because I do want to make my sirens kind of in the generally the same scale for anyone that ends up wanting to do like siren system dioramas or something like that, which is kind of like what I was going with the ST10, modeling off of a real one. But I kind of wanted to make them all be exactly the same size relatively, so that if you had the ST10 and the 500, you could actually have them side by side, and they'd be of an appropriate scale. It is, of course, 912, as all 500 SHTTs were, at least the short horn variety, the ones that were used in LA, and as well as the ST10s, of course. I really don't know what else I can really say about it other than it was a lot of fun to build. It was when it came to getting it to rotate, that was really my biggest headache, because building the actual rotator to fit in this thing for this scale, and then also getting slip rings that would really work with it, was just another thing that was just a real big pain. Because of how small it is, there's really not that much space in that rotator box to really fit anything. I really shouldn't even call it a rotator box, it's more of just like a motor cover. In my file name for that component, I just called it the doghouse. It's basically just like the doghouse on like an alerter or something like that, or a P15. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to actually sell these rotating. This was primarily made for my own enjoyment, just because I want to make these for my own little diorama system. But if I ever do end up selling them, I will of course post a video with the link to my Etsy shop showing that they're going to be sold. One of the things that is a little bit of an issue, but it's just kind of just a constriction of how it was designed and how I was able to put everything together, is that it's not actually a belt-driven rotator that's coming off of an extra little spindle off the back of the motor and then going to reducer gear and then the belt drive. This doesn't work that way. This is actually a gear-driven rotator, and it has its own independent motor that's tapping off of the power connections coming up. You can see I have it just lazily soldered together just so I can go to a USB cable. And this one, unlike the Chrysler, is actually USB powered, so it's just like my other models, my smaller models. And for those who are wondering about the reason why I prefer to make them USB powered, is because it's a very, very simple method of powering these sirens, and also because these sirens are not really intended to be loud. These are models. They're designed to be like sat on your desk at work or something like that, so you can enjoy them, and just because of their sheer tininess, but that you can also set them off and they make the true sound that the real ones would make. That's why, for example, the like my Model Ds and Model A's, they don't have a very long wind down. It's because they're mainly just designed to be an entertainment value kind of thing. Don't get me wrong, I do intend on making them wind down a little bit longer, but that's not their main goal. If you want sirens that are supposed to be loud, head on down to Eden's shop. I'll put that in the description. Those are sirens you can get that are actually going to be of a decent volume. But again, this is primarily just so you can have in your house and you can kind of play around with them, and they're not going to, you know, make you go deaf. They're primarily there just for entertainment. But getting back to the gear drive situation that I was referring to. So this rotator is a gear-driven rotator with its own independent motor, as I stated previously. And what that leads that to do is that if you were to run this in attack, for example, as soon as the siren has power cut to it, it will begin winding down, but the motor almost stops immediately. So it's not like the actual 500 SHTTs or even the 500 ATs and the 500 series that Federal's put out, where if you cut power to them, the fact that the rotor is still winding down will oftentimes carry the siren around still because of just the way that the rotator functions on those. But because of this design that I implemented, it just doesn't do that. So that's just one thing to consider. Is just stuck on a stick that I found kind of just in this park area around here. You've seen this test location many times for my mini model sirens. But it's just stuck up, the wires are just stuck up the bottom. This eventually will be plugged, and then you can actually have the kind of mount that would sit on top of the poles in Los Angeles to actually hold the siren up on a pole if you have it on a model. One of the other things I do want to also put together if I do end up selling them, like I had done with the ST10s, or at least with my idea with the ST10s, is that I also do want to have this included with like and basically a kit. That it won't come with a pole, but it'll come with all the fixings and the dressings that will go with it. So it will come with the basket, it'll come with the contactors and the control cabinet, just like the ones in Los Angeles. So if anyone else is a fan of the Los Angeles system as much as I am, you can actually make a model of the Los Angeles system. Yeah, but it's pretty cool. I've had a lot of fun with this one. This was one of the ones I was probably the most proud of actually getting finally done. Because like I said, it had been sitting in the back of my head for quite a while, and I never actually really did anything with it. But if you guys have watched the siren meet video, not Siren Con, but the desert siren meet that Douglas put out, Day Tripping Adventurer, good friend of both Eden and I, you can see in the first video that he had done about it, he has one of my models. That was actually the very first prototype of this model that I had completed. I just gave it to him. That was a non-rotating variety, of course. But now here it is. This is the finished one. And yeah, I'm just excited to actually get around and get the rest of the diorama I actually put together for it. But again, if I do end up selling them, they'll be out. What I do intend on selling pretty soon, actually getting out there, is going to be the Model Ls, the Model 7s, and the Chryslers. The Chryslers are going to be a little bit pricey just because there's so much material that goes into them, and they're kind of a pain to assemble. But yeah, there it all is. Now, one of the other things that I had neglected to mention is that since this uses a gear-driven rotator, now of course this is just lazily glued together so I actually can get back in there if I need to fix something. But since this is using a geared rotator, there's no actual clutch in there, because on the regular 500 they utilize the belt pretty much as the clutch, so that if this ever gets caught in really high winds, the belt will just slip. But since this is just gear driven, you really don't want to kind of force the head on this thing. If you need it to rotate to be more presentable in whatever diorama it's in, you just got to give it a little bit of power just to get it to spin around where you want it. And there's really no way around that that I can really foreseeably think of, just because it's kind of just a flaw that's inherent with the rotator design, at least of this model specifically. Other people might come out with different models, and it also is missing the little eye bolt. I didn't put it on there, but it's primarily all there together. But I'd love to see what you guys think about it down in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts, and yeah, I hope to see you in the next video.